Good evening. My name is Mojca, Slak, and I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Cleveland. I'm also a retired high school English teacher, which means that if I'm asked to speak on a theme, English is going to work for me better. And when Malika asked me to do the meaning of Statehood Day, it had me in English. I was struck that this year, as Bishop Mojca mentioned, Cleveland would celebrate Slovenian Statehood Day on the 6th of June. There might not be many here in attendance, but there are still Americans who remember exactly where they were 80 years ago today, some participating in the invasion of the European continent, and those on the home front who know exactly what they were doing when word came that the invasion had happened and had succeeded. There was still a long way to go, but it was the beginning of the end. Most of us here will remember another summer days many years later. We know exactly where we were and what we were doing on July 20th, 1969, when we listened as Neil Armstrong, a young man from Ohio, told us that he was taking a small step for man, but a giant leap for mankind as he stepped onto the surface of the moon. And perhaps even the youngest among us, like the case dancers in the back, will remember where they were on June 19, 2016, when the Cavaliers had come from behind as you could be without actually losing, to take the NBA championship. And then a few days later, 1 million people came downtown to celebrate the title, and there was barely any trouble. Only Clevelanders could do that.
That's right.
Whether as Americans, Ohioans, or Clevelanders, we recognize that when we live through significant dates like those three mentioned, we realize why they are significant. First, they define us. We know better who we are. Second, they set our course. We know what road we're going to be traveling. Third, they inspire us. We rededicate ourselves to those values, principles, and virtues which brought us to that date and which will help us stay the course. As Americans of Slovenian descent, we remember another date. You know exactly where you were on June 25th, 1991, when you learned that Slovenia had accepted the responsibility to stand as an equal among free nations to govern herself. She now defined herself as independent of other rulers. Her course was set to face the future on her own terms. She would preserve her centuries-old culture, teach her language to her children, persevere on the road of independence. Slovenia had been a nation for centuries. Now, she would also be an independent state. Though small in land area and population, she knew she could stand on her own 2 feet. She was prepared to accept the consequences of her decision, some positive, others painful, as the military assault on the heels of the declaration proved. She did not yield to force. And so we observe the 33rd anniversary of Slovenian Statehood Day. Slovenia has been holding her own very nicely. There have been many positive accomplishments. There may have been many painful consequences as well. So it's fitting that on this anniversary, those of us gathered here remember the past in order to rededicate the Slovenian nation to the virtues, principles, and values upon which Slovenia declared herself an independent state on June 25th, 1991. May Slovenia continue to abide by those traits which brought her to independence. May she continue to accept responsibility for herself and for the well-being of her citizens. May she continue to be a source of pride for us Americans